All right. Welcome to the Light Body Living Show. This is our podcast. I think this is number 22. And we are here with Darren LeBaron. And I am so excited to have conversation about mushrooms, all kind of mushrooms. And his journey with mushrooms has been amazing. So welcome.
Welcome. Greetings, sis. Give thanks. Appreciate the invitation to come and share on your platform, man.
Yes,
It's the
thank you.
first Bayesian podcast, that
Yeah.
I'm involved in. Yeah, man.
Awesome. And the Bajans are going to love you. This is an interesting topic. It takes us out of just the raw food realm. And I want people to understand there's a lot more that it encompasses than just because there's a lifestyle to it, a consciousness, and all
Mm.
those things need to be brought into the platform. So getting to talk to you engages us in a very different way. So let's start by getting some information from you about your background and your journey and how you got to this place.
Okay, cool, man. So yeah, man, as I said, I'm Darren LeBaron. I'm actually first generation born in the UK, of my generation, by way of Barbados, man. So I've got Barbadian heritage lineage. My grandmother came over in the 60s, 70s period. And what can I say, man? My mother then was brought over as a 10-year-old. She was born on an island and she came over as a 10-year-old. And then 10 years later, I came out of the portal, man. And that's why I'm here at the current moment. But with that said, I'm now officially a Bayesian citizen. I've got my citizenship, got my passport, like I'm fully Bayesian now. So, it's official. And with that said, man, so I was born and bred here in the UK. I'm educated here. This is all I knew. And I've grown up with having an interest in a range of different things, from childhood into adulthood. But what happened was, how I've got to this place, what people know me for, was actually my first trip to Barbados, which was now about 21 years ago. So about 21 years ago, yeah, just over. I had my first trip to Barbados, and in a nutshell, I fell in love with the island. I fell in love with my family. I fell in love with the culture and the way of life. But what it really done was reconnected me to nature and the soil and the land. And what it did do was inspired me after that first trip to return back to the island three more times before the year was up. So my first journey was in September. And by December, I'd returned three more times. You know what I'm saying? After having a 8-week trip. My first trip time was there, I was there for 8 weeks. And then boom, I was back. And on my final return back to the UK, I was so inspired that it inspired me to go back to college, man, and study horticulture, food growing, because I came to realize that I come from a family of growers. The island was, growers were everywhere. Everybody knew about food growing, but being born in the concrete jungle of the UK, I wasn't really privy to food growing outside of a few school projects and stuff. And that was the beginning of me, just like studying and learning about horticulture and food growing organic stuff. And my two favorite subjects or units that I was studying at that time was soil science and composting. I love the soil and I love composting. And I found out that the magic behind soil and the magic behind composting was this thing called mycelium. And I was like, I didn't know what mycelium was. I'm like, yo, like, how comes I'm in my 30s just learning about this thing? Yo, this is like mad important. And then with that, I dive deeper and deeper into just studying and learning. And I was actually a teacher and educator from a creative arts background. But as I was studying on this, at this college, I was also being asked if I would help them develop a program for young people because they wanted to engage young people in food growing and stuff. And I'd already been doing youth projects in the community, because I said I've got a background in creative arts and stuff. So I was doing that, but I was learning about horticulture. So I was literally learning this program, my level 2 by that time, one week. And then the following week, I was teaching students what I was learning, like 12, 11, 12, 13-year-olds and stuff. So that was just like the beginning of the horticulture, the cultivating side of things. But around the same time, well, I've been on a lifelong journey of, wanting to learn who I am, what I'm doing here, and why was I born in London? What's going on? What is the purpose of life? So I've always been trying to explore, the unknown. And that journey of wanting to know the unknown and learn myself got me into studying like different spiritual practices, esoteric practices, learning about, processes that would lead to altered states of consciousness. And that led me full circle to mushrooms again. So, well, I was already on that journey, and the food growing led me back to mushrooms again. So it was like two pathways. I'm just sharing all this to say that there was like two pathways to Darren LeBaron getting involved in mushrooms from a horticultural perspective, as well as like just trying to work myself out and learning that psilocybin containing mushrooms, which we commonly call magic mushrooms, were part of spiritual practices that many cultures, including Caribbean, including African traditions, have been, part of. And I was disconnected from all of that and wanted to learn more, man. And that's what I've learned and studied, and that's what I teach in the here and now.
Wow. Okay. So generally I want to talk about the misconceptions of that people have around mushrooms. I'm sure you know this from talking to people here. You've been here a couple of times now, and this thing of duppy parasols, and I know full well, and I've talked about it quite a number of times, where we're talking about medicinal, culinary, or sacred mushrooms. I want you to talk about the misconceptions that you've seen, and then we could get into diving deep.
Sure. Well, just for clarity, man, and transparency, that narrative that you shared there is a narrative that's a global narrative. That's just not in Barbados, man. That's like all around the world. That's here in the UK.
Yeah,
Mushrooms get a bad rap. Mushrooms got so many negative connotations and misconceptions. So, I'm unpacking the same stuff here in the UK, when I'm in America, when I'm in Barbados, when I'm in Jamaica, I'm in the Netherlands. I travel the world now. It's like, oh, I'm having the same conversation because most people have been misinformed. So, one of the main narratives that you hear is that, mushrooms, you got to be careful with mushrooms because they're deadly, they're poisonous, they're toxic, and you hear that, and they're not to be trusted. But with that said, yeah, there are poisonous and toxic mushrooms. But with that said, there are definitely more deadly plants and more toxic plants than you find mushrooms. And we don't have that same narrative around plants. And why is that? Because we're educated about plants to some degree. And that's like one of the misconceptions why we say these things about mushrooms, because we have a lack of education around mushrooms. So, what we have is a lot of fear-based, narratives that have just been passed on from one generation to another generation. But if you go to parts of the world where there are mushroom cultures and mushroom traditions, as far as gourmet mushrooms and people eating this for their dinner, you find that there's less of a negative narrative. We call it mycophobia. Myco being, a Latin name for mushrooms, and
like
obviously
that.
we know. So it's like people have got a phobia of mushrooms. But then in other places of the world, you find fungiphiles, as we say, like people who are fanatics,
Yeah,
because they come from a culture and tradition where they're educated. They're shown what mushrooms you can eat, which ones that you don't eat. It's like if you went out into the forest now, man, or the jungles, wherever you are, you're not just going to put a random plant in your mouth. You're not just going to
right,
start eating any plant because you'd be like, is this safe to eat? The same goes
right.
with mushrooms. But there's a reason why, mushrooms are loaded in that way. And that's because, I guess the powers that be that later on lead us to say, why would we call it duppy parasol or Jumbie umbrella? I've heard all these different duppy umbrella, all these names
Yeah,
that I hear, especially in the Caribbean. Why does it have this kind of negative slash spiritual connotations associated with it? And that's all due to that there are some, magic or hallucinogenic mushrooms that can give you access to the spiritual realm or places where you might find spirits and ghosts, so to speak. So that's why, and because I guess, in the country that I'm in, you're in, it's primarily like religiously inspired. Because of the schools of thought and the way of life and the practices that we have, these things would be considered negative. So, through the lack of education, through religion, that's why we get a lot of these misconceptions around mushrooms. But, the power and the key is education. So me as an educator is really about, okay, so what are mushrooms? If they are not just deadly, poisonous, and toxic, they are medicinal, they are nutritious, there's all these other things about mushrooms that we could be talking about. And if we're going to go to the other side of, well, their duppy umbrella or, duppy parasol, like, what does that mean? Why would we call it that? And what does it actually do for you? Well, then we can look at the therapeutic benefits that psychedelic mushrooms offer to the table as far as, mental health. It can inspire your physical health and or can actually support you on your spiritual development. So there's all of these things that we should be talking about, not just they're deadly, they're poisonous, they're toxic, be careful, you need to watch out.
Yeah, for sure. And I didn't get into mushrooms until I got into the raw food world, and it became such a big part of my repertoire now in terms of the medicinal ones, the reishi, the chaga, and those kind of things. Then you have your culinary ones where I have introduced it into my complete profile. I've only been recently able to find people on the island that actually grow it. And then being able to put in now like oyster mushroom, pink oyster mushrooms, and this kind of thing. Because before we started off where it was just like, butter mushrooms and portobellos,
Yeah,
maybe a
man.
little crimini in there, and
Mm.
and now an explosion of one over COVID, the actual medicinal mushrooms, and people are actually willing to try other culinary mushrooms. So I love that part. So they're stepping forward and making it part of their. I mean, before it was like a little mushrooms on your pizza was all you got.
Yeah, well, against this, it's exactly the same here, man. I call the COVID experience, inspiration for the mushroom movement. In all honesty, like as
Yeah,
because even as a cultivator, we realized all like what we was using. I'm off subject, but on it, but all of like what we call COVID gear, stuff that
yeah,
we needed to wear and do for COVID is actually what we use in mushroom cultivation. The masks, we had the masks, we had the hand sanitizers. These are all things that
right.
we use in mushrooms. Is like, oh, that's mushroom back in the days before COVID. That was mushroom gear. That's like what we use in the lab for, all of our sterilizing and keeping things clean. That's mushroom
Yeah,
cultivation.
I never thought of it like that. That's true.
Yeah. And so in the cultivating community, we was like, yo, where's all our resources gone? We can't get them off the shelves because, COVID has come and taken, taken all of our resources. Like everybody's going out and buying it. So it was like difficult to get our hands on things. But yeah, man, I definitely understand the same as well because growing up, in fact, what inspired me around mushrooms was that pizzas. It was like my favorite, it still is my favorite pizza topping. So that was my entry into what mushrooms are and how to, partake in them. And those were your butter mushrooms, your chestnut mushrooms, your field mushrooms. But with that said, most of the reasoning behind why they were still negative amongst even in the cultivating, people in the health and wellness space, so to speak, is because when people see mushrooms, they're like, they grow on dead things, they grow on rotting things. And when you see dead things or rotting things like your banana, when it's got its mold in it, again, that's negative, that's bad, that's unhealthy. And
Right.
what we have to understand is that mushrooms are the transformers. They transform. Yeah. And once we understand, because it's really important to understand what mushrooms are. So even before I answer that question and go into it, I think it's really important to understand, like, firstly, mushrooms are actually the soil creators. We have to understand, like, the role that fungi actually play. Because if we're
Yeah,
talking about food and why we should or shouldn't eat them, let's think about the fact that how many of us eat food? And
right,
that's all of us. And if you're somebody who, especially if you're plant-based and you're aware that all of those nutrients that you get from the plants come from the soil. And
right.
how do those plants get those nutrients? So when you
Yeah,
go back to the beginning of time, you go back to the beginning, you find out that the spores, which are like the seeds of the mushrooms, they actually arrive from beyond the earth. In fact, they're actually alien technology, but that's another subject. We might get onto that later on. But they arrived on asteroids and meteorites. That
right,
was when Earth wasn't green and lush as it is today.
right,
And during that period of time when Earth was being bombarded by these meteorites and asteroids and stuff, the spores were on these meteorites, as well as other key bacteria that would kickstart life on planet Earth as we know it today. So as
right,
the spores, which are non-physical, they're metaphysical because they're microscopic to the naked,
right,
you can't see with the naked eye, as they start to come together and combine and become physical, the first element of them is known as hyphae. That's like a physical strand of this fiber that the spores create. And then
right,
when two hyphae come together, that forms into mycelium. And then as
Right.
the mycelium grows and grows, it starts to move and it does the same things that we like to do. It likes to eat, drink, get jiggy with it, have a good time. It does all the things that, a living organism would want to survive because it is a living organism. And as
Yeah.
it around the planet looking for food, there wasn't much food to eat because the planet was barren. All there was the rock, the bedrock, and the
Right.
mushrooms ate the rock. That was the only ingredient, the food that they could eat. And once the fungi, the mushrooms, ate the rock, they shit out soil because
Right.
they're decomposers. So they
Right.
break down organic matter, they break it down, and
Yeah.
mushrooms created first layers of soil.
Right.
Therefore, 500 million years later, the first primitive plants could start evolving and coming out of the soil. The first ones were algae that you find in the waters. The algae merged with the fungi and then created plants on planet Earth. And ever since then, all this mycelium network that is interwoven, embedded herself into this bedrock and has formed into the soil, keeps all of the plants connected. And it provides all of the plants their nutrients, data, and information that they require. So this is an organic technology. So when it comes to mushrooms growing dead things and don't eat them, going back to that point, just know that they transform old life and turn it into new life,
Yes.
meaning that they are nature's recyclers. They recycle, they're the organic anybody who recycles or composts, you're just role playing what a mushroom does naturally. This is what mushrooms do. They take
Yeah.
old stuff, transform it into new stuff to feed the soil so that nutrients can then be provided to the plants that we end up eating.
Right, right, right. That's a really good way of explaining it. I love that. So that now gives you a sense of the role that the mushroom plays and how important it is in our environment. And now we're getting to understand better um uh what it is used for, I guess, is the next question. Because you can break this down. We touched on it a little bit, but I want you to go into it a little bit more from the medicinal to the culinary and obviously into the spiritual realm.
Sure. And let's just keep in mind, just to piggyback off what Allah said, if we know how important now the plants are, our relationship with plants, not just as consuming before we even eat plants, just that relationship of us needing fresh air. Just know that
Yeah.
without the fungi, without the mushrooms, 90% of the plants would not be here. Like
19.
that 90% of the plants are dependent upon fungi. Like that's how
Wow.
important they are. So us sitting here saying they're deadly, they're poisonous, they're duppy umbrella, they're this, they're that. It's like, man, we got to show them a little bit more respect than we're giving them. And we have to give them a lot more credit than we've been giving them, And
Yeah,
here we
yeah,
go.
yeah. And the first network is from the mycelium under the earth.
There
That
you
is
go.
the first network. It is not the internet. The
No,
the
man.
the real network is under the soil,
That's right.
and it
That mycelium
covers all
network.
life.
Yeah, man, that mycelium network is the organic fiber optics. We've
Yes.
all got all of these technologies now, and it's all of these synthetic technologies are blueprints of organic technologies, things that are natural, that happen in nature. So this is
Yeah.
what science has been observing. But to answer the question, though, yeah, so you've got gourmet mushrooms. You've got medicinal mushrooms. You've got
Yeah.
psychedelic mushrooms. You've got mushrooms that are regulators. I'm just saying that to say that there's just so many different types of mushrooms out there. So yeah, you need to know which ones are what and which ones to cook with, which ones to use as medicine and all the rest of it. That's really important. But yes, we have gourmet mushrooms. I'll just pick one for now. I would just say the oyster mushroom, because that's a
Yeah.
really popular one most people are familiar with. And then what you find out is that there's consistencies, whether you're talking about the gourmet mushrooms and or the medicinal mushrooms and or the psychedelic mushrooms, because in my humble opinion, all food is medicine. They're all medicine.
Yeah.
They just, they're all, or should I say, they all have medicinal properties. And whether
Yes.
you're just consuming them on a pizza, making yourself a little burger, however you do it, it's like you just need to get them into your system in some shape, form, or another. So the
Yes.
oyster mushroom is known for having, being good for the immune system. It's got cancer preventative properties, and it's very diverse in the sense of the way that you can process it.
Yeah,
as
sure.
far as, you can make, it's a very good alternative for people who no longer want to consume meat. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? It's very
yeah,
chewy, so it's got all of these qualities that it's become very popular and favorable amongst, within the cuisine world, and especially amongst, vegans and plant-based um, individuals. With that said, they're really easy to cultivate as well. So you can grow them on straw, you can grow them on a lot of waste materials like most mushrooms. And the fact that you can grow them on waste material means that it also solves one of the issues that we may have on the island too, I'm assuming. And that's like waste problems, like issues with the waste. So you can
yeah,
take things that we consider trash and rubbish
yeah,
and actually cultivate mushrooms on them. So these are some of the benefits that these mushrooms have as far as just having them in a gourmet, perspective, from a gourmet perspective. But at the same time, you can also process these mushrooms and create your powders. You can dry
yeah,
them out and create powders, and you can add them to your smoothies. You can
yes,
you can do extractions and make yourself some tinctures. You can put them in capsules. So there's different ways that you can intake these gourmet mushrooms, so they also have medicinal properties associated with them. Another popular mushroom, that's medicinal, is like turkey tail. The reason I'm bringing up oyster mushrooms and turkey tail is because I'm aware that they grow on the island, and I'm
right,
also they grow all over the world pretty much. So they're very
right,
commonly accessible. And once you identify these mushrooms, you can do a lot because, again, turkey tail is also really good for the immune system. It's got this cancer preventative. They're actually utilizing it for cancer patients. So even those who have been being diagnosed with cancer, it's helping them to regulate their cancer. It's also good for diabetes, man. There's like a long list. What do you call it? NCDs,
yeah,
non-communicable
yeah,
diseases. Yo, just like I could do this all day, sis. All of the mushrooms that are
yeah,
on the shelves in the here and now, the ones that are behind you as well, the reishi mushrooms, the
yeah,
lion's mane mushroom. People are going to be hearing about these mushrooms now. They all have similar traits. And what do I mean by that? They're known as functional or adaptogenic mushrooms. And what does
yes,
that mean? Just by eating these, bear with me.
no
I had
problem.
my no disturb. It's because it's connected to my laptop. It's the call came through on the laptop.
Yeah,
Yeah, functional mushrooms. What does that mean? It means it helps your body to function. What does
yeah,
adaptogenic mean? It allows your body to adapt. Adapt and function for what? Whatever your body needs. This is how magical these mushrooms are. And I'm not talking about the magic mushroom. I'm talking about these mushrooms are magical in the sense of all you need to do is just eat them, and they
yeah,
know what to do. They can go into your body and find the places that they need to go to. I know it sounds far-fetched to some people. They're like, no, like, because we're used to eating this specifically for this, or eating that specifically for that ailment, or this. It's like, no, 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 no. You just got to eat these mushrooms. You've got to bring them into your diet, into your cuisine, into your smoothies, into your teas, into your coffees, whatever it is that you're into, and they will find a way. So if it's cancer, they will find and look for those cancer cells. It's like, this is what this body needs. We're going to go and find that and sort that
yeah,
out. And if you've got, for example's sake, lion's mane, that's really good for nerve regrowth. It can actually supports with neurogenesis. This is the one thing that people say, you can't rebuild your brain cells. Oh, yes, you can. Mushrooms support you in doing that. This is what I'm saying. This is how amazing these mushrooms are. So lion's mane can help with nerve regeneration in the physical body, but also in the brain. Any
yes,
damage that you may have figured, you may have had in the past. So, for
yeah,
example, say things like Alzheimer's and dementia, lion's mane is really good for. Lion's mane is a gourmet mushroom. You can eat it, you can put it in your food and eat it. It's also
yes.
medicinal because you can then powder it and extract it and use it as medicine. It's twofold, it's 360 degrees. These things are, yeah, they'll get me, you're getting me excited, man. Just talking
No,
about
no,
it.
no. I need you to get excited because I want people to understand. I have for years made sure and introduced it in different ways at the clinic. We definitely do it in our foods. I love making pink oyster mushrooms. I dehydrate them. I love that it keeps its pink color. We make teas in the cooker where we do either reishi and lion's mane are my two new favorites. I do like a bit of chaga in there sometimes when I can get it. So I have been introducing it, but to hear it from you and with the passion and the excitement, I love that because we need more perspectives, and you are really laser focused into the mushrooms. So this is awesome. Now, you have an event coming up here in BIM where you're going to get a chance to put this passion to the test. Okay? People are already coming down for it. Tell me a little bit more about this event.
Yeah, man. So I've got a series of events that are, are lined up, and and I wouldn't be doing the series. Well, I would be doing it regardless, but I definitely tested the waters because, like you said, I've heard for the most part that Bayesians are not into mushrooms. They don't like mushrooms. It's this, that, and the other. But I can assure you that I've already done two events already in BIM, and both of them were fully sold out, packed out. The rooms were filled to the brim, and that's how I started the sessions because I was told, oh, a handful of people are going to turn up. If that, you're going to get 2, 3, 5 people turn up. And we had 30, 50 people in the room. Easy. Plus loads of people saying, yo, I only just found out about it. When's the next one? I want to come. So I want to remove the narrative that Bayesians and Caribbean people are not into mushrooms. We're into mushrooms. We are mushrooms, in fact. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
But with that said, yeah, man. So in a few weeks, man, yeah, in a couple of weeks, October the 16th, I've actually got an immersion, a wellness immersion. And what is that? It's called mycobim. As I said at the beginning, myco being a Latin name for mushrooms, as we refer to it, and we all know what BIM means. So it's basically mushrooms in Barbados. That's what this
Yeah.
whole mission is about, bringing mushroom awareness, education to Barbados. And primarily, this focus has been inviting people, local people, as well as people all around the world, to come and learn about mushrooms and the wellness potential that they bring, the therapeutic potential that they bring. And we're looking specifically at gourmet and medicinal mushrooms that you find on the island that are accessible and or you can easily cultivate them. So what's going to happen over 6 days, yeah, 7 days. We've got a series of events that covers everything from mushroom cultivating. So how to cultivate, well, firstly, what are these mushrooms? We're going to learn about what mushrooms are. Then we're going to learn about how to cultivate these mushrooms. And then obviously, once you've cultivated and you've grown your mushrooms, you're going to want to eat your mushrooms. So we're going to have to learn, what do you do with mushrooms? How do you prepare and cook mushrooms? And then some of you
Yeah.
are saying, okay, I've got that one in the bag. What about this medicine stuff you're talking about? How do I turn my mushrooms into medicine? So then we'll be looking at how do you process, by, for example, drying out your mushrooms, processing them so they can become powder that you can introduce to your smoothies or your teas and coffees. Some of you might be saying, oh, actually, I don't just want to have mushrooms just for day-to-day well-being and wellness. I actually have a particular issue that I want to address. And then you're going to learn how to do extracting, because extracting mushrooms, the compounds from the mushrooms, it has more of the spectrum or the compounds accessible to the human body. So if you have a specific area, if you're talking about Alzheimer's, dementia, cancer, it's like, okay, what you're going to want to do, you still want to be eating your mushrooms, you still want to put them in your smoothies and all the rest of it, but you might want to be getting your tinctures going. So we're going to show you how to make tinctures. So we're just
Yeah.
basically supporting individuals the journey of building a relationship with this living and breathing organism every single step of the way. And in addition to that, I've got some special guests coming in the house, including yourself. That's going to be teaching and sharing some of the some of the gourmet, some of the medicinal, and all of the knowledge and wisdom that they share from, a chef's perspective, a healer's perspective. Everybody has their perspective or relationships with fungi. So we've created a safe space, a safe educational space for people to come and learn about all of that. But that's just the beginning, man. That's just the beginning. That's 6, 7 days. We've got a series of events that will be coming after that. There's a lot that we're doing, sis, but I can't say too much, We just let people know that you can check out mycobim.com, or check out my page, DarrenLeBaron.com, or find me on the social media, and you can learn more about that. And we're definitely, the goal of this, because a lot of my immersions and retreats, I've got people from the UK coming, I've got people from other parts of Europe coming, I've got people from America coming. But what's really important, regardless of where I am, it's about engaging people who are on the ground, local people, and making sure that they get access and are aware and privy to what's going on. So that's, for me, in a long way of saying that, it feels like I'm coming full circle. It's where I actually got my inspirations to start my cultivation journey, because I just wanted to be able to grow healthy food for my daughter at that time, who was 9 months old in that very first journey. And I've come full circle to be doing all of this, to then be coming back to BIM and be saying, yo, man, this is what I've got in my toolbox. This is what I've got in my rucksack. Like, if anybody's interested in trying some, learning some, I've got you in it. So there's no barriers in accessing this. That's what's really important.
All right, I'm looking forward to this very, very much. And now I want us to go back and I want us to talk a little bit about our African ancestors because we seem to have a disconnect a little bit between thinking that they are into mushrooms at all. We don't really see it as part of the African culture. And I know with the movie that just went by, but both of them, the Black Panthers movie, the Baba Kalindi really emphasized the fact that Purple Heart was a metaphor for mushroom. And I
Mm,
really like that. And I like the introduction of it and it being a sacred medicine. And I know that you do a whole lecture series, or you've done a whole lecture series on the history of it.
mm,
And I want us to do a little connecting the dots on us placing some seeds in people's minds of where they can go back and the
yeah,
see
man.
where it
Yeah.
comes from, because there a lot of these people would not have seen or heard Baba Kalindi's collection of talks. So
Mm.
give us your perspective on what you've seen and learned. Just, a short stint, because I'm sure you have lots to say when people come to your event here.
Man. So, but on that note, I think this is again a perfect opportunity to just bring clarity to who Baba Cindi E is and
Yeah,
was since
yes,
and importance.
is,
You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah,
and, Baba was a teacher and educator from my knowledge, and originally going back over 20 plus years ago, he was dealing with the African origins of martial arts. That's what I knew Baba for. He was a master martial artist and he taught about martial arts. Yes, we find it in Asia, in China, and India, but if you follow it back to its source, you find it in Africa. In addition to him teaching about the African origins of martial arts, he also taught that the origins of martial arts was birthed by the psilocybin containing mushrooms. Yes, magic mushrooms. So me being into history and culture in general, I was privy to Kalindi for his work in African history, African culture, martial arts. But I was redirected back to him when I was on this journey of wanting to learn about magic mushrooms, psilocybin, DMT, and all of these other plant technologies that support you in getting into these altered states of consciousness and connecting with your ancestors. So when I was redirected back to him, I was like, yo, this is Morpheus. This is who I've been looking for. And I
yes,
know he was that, I know he was that for many other people too. So I encourage people to check him and his works out. You spell his name Kilindi. That's Kilindi. That's Kalindi, and his last name is E, spelt Iyyi. Please do your Googleations, check him out. I'm here because he was here. I just carried the baton along with many others that are coming from a school of thought that was inspired by Kalindi and his works. And basically, on my journey, being redirected back to Kalindi, he was showing me stuff that was in African history that I had seen before and I was privy to, but I didn't see the connections with mushrooms. And it was like, and what I decided to do with my own research and just supporting the work that he was doing, I always come from a premise of, well, let me go to the source. That's always no matter what no matter what the subject is, no matter is, I want to go back to source. Let me go back as far as I can and
right,
see whatever interest I have, how far it goes back. So if it's hip hop, let me see how far I can go back with hip hop. If it's, computers, what is the first computer? When was the first computer? Who created it? I just want to know and follow the journey. And
right,
because just like you said, I've been told that, yo, in Africa, we didn't do this stuff, man. This is what growing up in the UK, this is what the white boys that I used to go to school with were into. It's not something that me and my homies and brethren were into. So I was
yeah,
like, if this is the fact that we are the first as African indigenous people, and we were the first to do this, is there any evidence? And there
right,
is evidence. There's not a lot of evidence in the sense of where we usually look in books
right,
because our traditions are oral traditions and it's all
yes,
to do with rites of passages and initiations. And that's why, for the most part, we would say, oh, we don't know about that. We don't talk about that. That's not out there. That's because you've not been initiated. You're not on that pathway into that rites of passage. But now
right,
in the here and now, we've got access to the internet. There's people out there that sharing a bit more information. So I can share a little bit with you. So that's just to let you know
right,
that this is a thing. I wanted to find out who are the first people African people that you primarily find in the Congo region, Central Africa, and
Yeah.
a group that, the ones in Central Africa are known as the Twa, the Aka, the Baka, the Buti, the Bobongo. That's just a handful of them that you find in the Central African region. Then you find a group down south in the southern parts of Africa. They're commonly called the Bushmen or the San or the Khoi or the Khoi Khoi. So these are two distinct groups that you find on the African continent, and these are the earliest people that we know on planet Earth in this current cycle. So firstly, I'm like, can I find the oldest people? Yes, I have. I found Adam and Eve. If that's how we're dealing with, from a biblical, I found Adam and Eve, the first, God's people, his children, his creation. And then I
Right.
wanted to know, did they do psychedelics? And would you believe it? In the creation stories, they talk about mushrooms. In their they talk about how they got here. Very similar to how I explained earlier on about the mushrooms coming from somewhere else and
Yes.
arriving and creating life on Earth. This is
Right.
the same metaphor or principles they talk about in their creation stories. And they actually refer to it as a mushroom, a fungal mushroom. And they call it a longkok, Alonkok. And this name is also the name for one of the creator deities. It's actually the Great Mother. So like they talk about the creator or God being a mother, a woman, which kind of makes sense to me because when it comes to creating and things like, I know that I came from a woman, it's a feminine principle. So they talk about the mother creating a child, and this child is a mushroom. Crazy.
Right.
But that's what they talk about in their creation story. And then what you
Right.
find out, something known as the stoned ape hypothesis. And this is the notion that these ancient African people were hunter-gatherers, they were foragers. And as
Right.
hunter-gatherers and foragers, they would hunt and gather food. And
Yeah.
down the line somewhere, they gathered some psilocybin-containing mushrooms. And when they partook in these mushrooms, it enhanced their abilities, their senses. So it means because at low doses of psilocybin mushrooms, it sharpens your sight. It makes you hear better. Your tastes are heightened, or you can smell better. So
Yeah.
as a hunter, these are things that are an advantage to you. So these groups of Africans move further down the line, the evolutionary line, as some would say, than other groups. So these
Right.
were the beginnings of the first people in Africa to ever take psilocybin mushrooms or any kind of substance. And these were the first groups that developed agriculture. They were pastoralists following the cattle because the cattle
Right.
produced the. And I know you know this in BIM because there's many cows in BIM, and the cows
Yes.
produce, they deliver a gift. And on that
Yeah.
gift, because there's many cows and bulls and stuff, and they provided that same gift. So they
Yeah.
would partake in this. And this is where we get the first agricultural societies. This then moves on to where we get the first spiritual systems and religions coming out of all of this. So this is just to
Right.
let you know how far back it goes to be the
Right.
dawn of time. And I'm saying that to say that we have got an unbroken link in Africa of using this stuff. To this day, we still do this stuff in Africa, but it's just
Right.
part of the rites of passage. It's the journey from boy into manhood, from girl into womanhood. You would come through a journey where you're introduced to not just mushrooms, but other plants, other healing and medicinal plants, and shown their what they are, how to identify them, and how to use them. So what did
Yeah.
they use them for? This is where I might, wrap it up. What do the people in Africa say that they use magic mushrooms for and use these hallucinogenic plants for? They say
Right.
that they are a technology that enables them to communicate with their ancestors.
Right.
It's this, mate. ET phone home. It's a organic technology that enables them to speak to the unseen, the dead. This
Yeah.
ties into why we might call them duppy umbrella, duppy parasol, and all of these kind of things, because we've now moved away from our African indigenous practices into a new man's religion, and the new man's religion saying that all them things are negative. So that's
Right.
them how you start to get these negative connotations of them being leave that alone because they make you see dead things or speak to dead people and stuff like that. But in Africa, on
Yeah.
the continent, that's what they do. Wow, it just went all dark all of a sudden. That's what they do. Let me put the light on. It's getting dark here in the UK, man. It's evening time. So yeah, with that said, we've been doing and utilizing it for those reasons since the dawn of time. And one other element that you can find within most traditions in Africa is that they use it for healing. So the way they do it is that they communicate with the ancestors and they utilize it as a tool of divination. So I know some people, it's like, whoa, 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 it's like heavy stuff. But yeah, it's a way, the same way that people have got their Apple Watch and they ask it to regulate their heartbeat and what's going on. The same way we got this iPhone and I look at the weather app and I want to know what's going on. And we believe in this synthetic technology. Just know that still have, but don't utilize it as often as we used to, the ability to tap into this stuff. And that
Right.
organic technology, the Africans utilize mushrooms and other technologies to be able to do that. And then that's how they would diagnose themselves for appropriate healing that they need. And I know some people like, boy, that's all that juju, black magic, mumbo jumbo stuff. Just know that science today is exploring all of that. All of the medicines that we utilize today, even the your what do you call it, paracetamol and all these pain relief things, they're all fungus, they're all byproducts of mushrooms. So they've been looking at what these African people have been doing, made
Mm-hmm.
that bad, and have taken it and turned it into a synthetic version and sell it to the world. Like they give us their juju. You know what I'm saying? They give us their version and make us look
Yeah.
at one in a negative light. So I'm just saying that to say that what we see our African indigenous people do, working with these plants, making these concoctions, they're just doing exactly the same thing in a lab. They've got a laboratory version of it. But when we utilize it, we diagnose our healing, and it's also part of the warrior's path. And this ties in with what you were saying about the Black Panther. So this is
Yes.
where I'll wrap it up. When it comes to mushrooms and other plant technologies, what it can do at higher dosages is it can open you up to what we would say are your superpowers.
Yes.
And just like you
So
saw in the movie, T'Challa, he had to partake in his plant, whether
yeah.
you want to call it mushrooms or not, because there
Yeah.
are other entheogens out, because all the Iboga crew, they're saying it's Iboga. All the
Yeah.
mushroom people say it's mushroom. Hey, I'm not here to debate. I
Right.
don't care which one it is. It's just
Yeah.
letting you know that our people deal with this stuff. Then you go to the ancestral realm and get your downloads, get your information to be
Yeah.
born again, to rise from the ashes, to come from the underworld, back renewed, born again, the hero, so you can fight. And whatever your fight may be, it might be a personal, internal fight, or it might be a physical fight. And that's where the warriors in Africa, how they utilize this stuff and what they're showing in these movies.
Right. So, watching or listening to Baba Kalindi talk about this stuff, and he always liked these movies that had these metaphorical, and he brought it up, and it planted a seed in my head. I've never thought of it another way again. And the thing is,
Mhm.
right after he took it, he went to the Chachala, I mean, he went to the ancestral realm, talked to his dad, came back, and it's just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So I like the concept of that. But the other thing, you mentioned it just about, and I want you to go in depth a little bit more, and that is um larger doses. Because this is something that I've worked with Acacia where, we want people to get past that initial stage. I know that right now you're hearing a lot of stuff from us, and some people haven't even tried mushrooms yet, but I want people to know what the future is about to bring. There are people already in there, and we need way more people thinking about this and dabbling in that realm.
For sure.
So
To bring
one of the
it up.
things that Baba, you know, was about the large, the higher doses and the reason for it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. So,
Yeah,
like you said, there might be some people that are brand new to this. So, I'll bring the clarity and the spectrum of it all. So, obviously, when it comes to mushrooms and these substances, you have to dose yourself up. You have to have a specific dose,
yeah,
and there's different degrees of dosages. So, I'll just take people through some of the basic ones. So, for example's sake, right now, what's really trendy in the West is something called microdosing. So microdosing is when you take subperceptual amounts of this psychedelic where you do not have any hallucinogenic experiences. You're taking such a minute amount that you can just get on with your day. You can go to work, you can do your computer work, you can drive your car, you can do whatever it is you need to do. And what it suggested it does is the microdosing, it works on you behind the scenes. This is some of the work when we're talking about neurogenesis and building, working on nerve damage and stuff. So
Right.
you don't have to have the full-blown experience to get the benefits from mushrooms. So that's
Right.
where we're talking about. And there is like a dosing range. They give you numbers, but I'd
Right.
usually tell people ignore the numbers because everybody is unique and everybody's bespoke. So one person's microdose is somebody else's, not somebody else's microdose. And the same when it comes to high dose, everybody's dosage is different. You've got to find
Yeah.
your way in this
Yeah.
space. So got your microdosing, very low dosage, below the level of you feeling or having a hallucinogenic experience. Then you have what people call museum doses, recreational doses. It's when you start moving up, you start going from below 0.0 grams to a gram. You're in the
Yeah.
gram range, and that's where you can take and you start having what we would call heightened sensual feelings, meaning
Right.
that, as I said, you see sharper. You're listening to music, you're like, wow, that sounds like it sounds beautiful. You can hear people walking down the street. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I could be into it, and you can, like, it's like, so that's when you're like, oh, this is now affecting me. Then you get higher dosages, like what we call the museum dose, like when things start waving and shimmering and like,
Yeah.
so there's an initiation and a graduation. And then
Right.
you move to what's known as a mega dose, or what some would call the heroic dose. And that was
Yeah.
coined by Terence McKenna. That's,
Right.
I would encourage people to check him and his work out too, Terence McKenna. And he coined the heroic dose at the dosage of 5 grams. So this is now where
Right.
we get in. So Terence says 5 grams was his heroic dose that got the
Right.
wheel turning. He didn't say
Right.
that's the be all and end all. He says, if you really want to start learning about mushrooms and want to get the wheels turning, not spinning, but just turning, then 5 grams gets you there. And
Yeah.
what I've discovered is that that's not the case for everybody. Everybody, as I said, is unique. So for
Yeah.
some people, 5 dose gets them right inside the dance. But for some
Right.
other people, 5 grams just gets them on the edge. I always talk about this. I don't know, sis, if you've been to a party, you've gone to a party, and you don't even get inside the dance. There's a
Yeah.
vibe outside the dance. I'm saying
Yeah.
people's cars are pull up. You're just
Yeah.
outside. You can catch a vibe outside. So
Yeah.
that's
Of
dosage.
course.
Yeah, them vibes there.
Of course.
Then,
Yeah.
but if you want to be
Yeah.
in the dance, then this is where Baba Kalindi talks about. You need to put enough fuel in the tank to get you in the dance,
Yeah.
or better yet, in the dojo. Yeah. And
Yeah.
Baba would say that if you want, yeah, so we would maybe start at 5 grams, but we're working our way towards at incremental stages, getting our dosage higher. So we
Yeah.
want to get the wheels turning to getting in full motion to spinning and moving around, so there's
Right.
levels and degrees of this thing. So Baba Kalindi would say, quoting him, that it's once you get into the 20 dry gram range of psilocybin mushrooms, not 5, but 20 dry grams of psilocybin, that's when you're starting to understand what this mushroom thing is all about. But
Yeah.
again, I would say to people, one, you don't start off and jump in at 20 grams. You start wherever you feel comfortable. If you want to start microdosing, go for it. If you want to start at 5 grams, go for it. Anywhere in between, it's up to you. But the mission is to increase your dosage as and when you're inspired to, and or the mushrooms tell you to. Like there's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like I've had this conversation just this week with 3 people who are all nervous and not sure about their dosaging. And then they basically says, yo, when I last took mushrooms, the experience is telling me next time you come back, take more.
Yeah.
Sometimes it tells you in the experience, go and eat more now, go and eat some more now. Like now you need to eat more. And or
Yeah.
when you come back, increase your dosage. So I say that to say that it's not a race. It's not a pissing contest. It's not to say that I can do more mushrooms than you. It's just for you to put enough fuel in the tank to get you to where you need to get to do the warrior's work. As I said, Baba Kalindi was a warrior. He taught and
Yeah.
educated us as warriors. And some of us are here not just to hang out in the rain with the rainbow and the bubbles and the unicorns and all the love and light crew. We're here to do some work and getting
Yeah.
into these realms, into these planes, the multiverse that's got infinite levels. Like, yeah, if
Exactly.
we can start at level 1, that's cool. But like anybody who plays classic computer games, you're gonna want to get into getting further and getting deeper or into higher levels. And I guess, as I say to people, getting where you fit in. If it's for you, it is for you. And if it's not, it's not. And just leave it alone. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Exactly.
all about the warrior's work, man, and getting into those realms and understanding that some of us need to stand up and be counted.
Yeah. It is one of the things once I got into this and I listened to Baba, that I instantly got some downloads on ways of making it easier to ingest these large doses. And this is where my wheels inside of my head started turning when it came to certain recipes. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Just because you
mm.
want to make it easier to do that work, make it easier for people, to get those dosages in. So
So come
I've done that
on,
work, and
share with the people, man. Share with the people. Then what are some of the things you got, man?
one of the things that from the research done, or Acacia putting me through it, is lemon juice really helps to you know that I told you all about the cells. So you're making a version of it now that you make it easier for people to take in large doses. You know what I
Mm,
mean? So we have a tradition here in Barbados where we pickle a lot of things. Everybody is very stuck on the pickling the sauce and the pork and so on. But
mm,
mushrooms replace them, and you now taking this to a whole different level.
mm.
So
So
it
you know,
makes it
there's
a
a
lot easier to ingest.
so there's something called lemon tech, and that ties in because what happens is the lemon, the acids, starts to break it down and starts to digest it. So by the time you get it inside your system, it's like it's kind of starts
Yeah.
the process started already. Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's what she told me. And the minute she said that, it clicked. It just
Mm,
clicked. So you wanted a recipe that you can make it easy, taste good, and you can ingest large amounts. Because that was I mean, I've been in discussions where people are trying to find ways. I've even heard Baba talking about this, where they're finding ways of taking it in, whether it be in tea form or they're putting
mm.
it in a sandwich. And I've heard all kinds of things. So you want to make it easier for people to ingest it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, there you
So
go.
yeah, 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 for sure. Um, All right, so let's talk a little bit more about the event coming up. Any other
Mm,
insights you're going to share in terms of day-to-day stuff? I know that you're going on some tours. I know you're doing your medicinal stuff. Um,
yeah, yeah.
and you said earlier that you had events here already. Were they
Mm.
similar to this, or it was just leading up to this?
It was just leading up to this, man. This is all brand new for the island, man. It's something I've done before in the UK, in the Netherlands, and in Jamaica, but the first time in BIM. And it's been inspired by those sessions that I had done previously because there was like quite a bit of interest in people wanting to learn more. So yes, like I said, we're going to really dive deep into the cultivation side of things. So it's going to support people on their personal cultivation journey. If you just want to have some mushrooms growing on your windowsill in your kitchen or in the garden somewhere, but it's also can also inspire farmers. It's a very good approach to learning about sustainable agriculture. So we're going to be diving in and looking at different techniques for cultivating mushrooms. So that's good. I'm excited about that because that's like my forte of teaching and sharing. But what I'm
Right.
excited about some of the additional things on top of that. So we're going to be doing some foraging. We're going to be going out first. We're going to be doing some IDing and some foraging. And we're going to be doing that in November as well. So we've got some things happening in November. I'll share a little bit with you where the inspiration has come from this is because when I came to the island looking for the mushroom community, looking for the mushroom information, yeah, there wasn't a lot of it readily available. That's in most places in the world, though. It's not just happening like that in Barbados. So it's like, I'm going into the archives, I'm going to the libraries, I'm speaking to the elders, I'm speaking to anybody who knows anything about mushrooms. And what can you tell me? What can we find out? And I found out that the official documents that are readily available to the public around fungi in Barbados, and it wasn't even just bespoke to Barbados, goes back to 1948. There's not like much information about fungi in Barbados since like recorded in books since 1948. Now there has been some research taking place, but a lot of that has just been academically driven. So that's been taken place in UE, and some of that has taken place, yeah, just in other areas like independent researchers. But
Right.
but information isn't hands-on. So what we've
Right.
decided to do is I'm bringing like the 18 man, the best of the best of people that I know from the UK at least, to start with, to do an island survey going from top to bottom, left to right, and looking at what mushrooms grow on the island. Can we, like, because I'm asking people what mushrooms grow? It's like, there's some duppy parasol down there. I'm like, yeah, but what mushroom? You know, we've generalized all of these mushrooms, but they're all unique and bespoke, just like us. So it's like, let's find out what mushroom, what gourmet mushrooms are on the island, what medicinal mushrooms are on the island, what other mushrooms are on the island that are good for bioremediation, meaning mushrooms that are good for replenishing the soil. You know,
Yeah.
what mushrooms are good for creating that we've got an island that might be good for creating habitats for wildlife. Because I've heard that some of the wildlife are on the decline, and you've got mushrooms that are out there that are good for wildlife, you know, evolution and creating habitats for them. There's a long list of all of these benefits that mushrooms bring, but we don't know what mushrooms are on the island. What about, like I said, all of this waste that we've got on the island by way of coconuts and sugarcane and stuff like that, that mushrooms would love to eat? What thing could
Right.
we find that mushroom could eat, and we could grow mushrooms that we can eat so we can sort out some waste issues? And, you know, so I'm saying and sharing that to say that
Wow.
these are some of the projects that we're going to be developing on the island. And we're definitely going to need people on the island with the knowledge and the wisdom that they have to then come together as a consortium, and then we can start to address this stuff. So I'm bringing the people who know more than me, you know what I'm saying? Because I still only know a little piece. So I'm bringing people who know their piece, other people who know their piece, to come together and say, yo, this is what we're doing in Barbados. Give us some support. And then what we're going to do is reach out to the community, say, yo, come support. Come learn,
Yeah.
come study, come
Okay.
learn with us. So we're going to be doing that at Walker's Reserve.
Uh-huh.
We're going to be at Andromeda Botanic Gardens. We're going to Cocoa Forest, yeah, Cocoa Hill Forest.
Yeah.
So like doing a lot of work in the Scotland district. We're
Right.
going to be, is it Turner's Hall?
Yeah.
Come on. So
Yes.
we just been mapping it, yeah, we've been mapping it out, all the rural areas. We're going to Hillaby. You know, we're going to be checking out all the different types of terrain there are, different regions, and start doing some IDing, some foraging, collecting cultures, and ideally creating our own fungarium, which is like a library of mushroom data and information, which is going to be beneficial to the world, not just Barbados, but to the
Yeah.
world.
That is awesome. The you mentioned this earlier, and it stuck with me, and that is that the turkey tail. You found
Mm,
turkey tail here.
yeah,
Um,
man.
so I mean, I am hoping that some more of the well, when you identify them, I would know, but I'm hoping that we all can find some chaga here. And but turkey tail is extremely important with the elevation of cancer patients. This is
Yeah, man.
something that I myself would love to use a lot more in my tinctures and so on.
All right, it's coming, man. It's coming. I think I said to you, man. I'm saying way too much, man. But I'll pull it out there, man. When I was there the last time, I was able to, because where are them Rishi behind you from? Where they actually from?
This is St. Andrew out by
Okay.
like Farley Hill, that area.
Okay, because the last time I was on the island, I had the privilege to be taken out by one of my brothers and show me where there was some reishi. So I was
Right.
able to harvest some of the spores. I brought some of the spores back with me to the UK. We've been growing cultures here of the Barbados. I've got the whole community over here excited because over it's the first time we're doing this stuff in the UK. It's like nobody in the UK has grown reishi mushrooms from Barbados. So,
Of
but the whole idea
course.
is because we don't have the lab set up, we don't have the provisions at this stage on the island. I need to bring it back to the UK where we can be doing that work and can start growing the culture. So the goal, the vision is that we're going to be growing local mushrooms. We're not going to be importing stuff. It's not about importing mushrooms from anywhere, anywhere. Like, let's find what's happening on the island. Let's cultivate those cultures so then we can cultivate the fruit, and then we can eat the
Yes.
fruit that comes naturally from that environment, that comes was gifted for the people that are from that environment. It comes from the same soil that those people come from. It's going to be really
Yes.
important. So I'm really excited about all of this stuff, man.
Yeah, this sounds absolutely amazing because being able to get Bajan red reishi has been a privilege, especially my first introduction to this happened just before COVID hit. And
Mm,
I was able to put together some dual extraction so that you can really have a series of combinations of actually reishi with other herbs to
yeah,
help
man.
people build their immune systems when it came to dealing with COVID.
Yeah, man. And that's what I'm saying.
So
That's
I
why we
was,
have to be together.
yes. And I think it all happened for a reason. It's like it just it just presented itself, and I love that. It was
Yeah.
time. It was very timely. So the other mushrooms will come now with you investigating, and they will come at a time where people can utilize them or have another option, which is
Yeah,
what
man.
I really want people to have more natural options than just the pills
Yeah.
and the medicine from the doctors.
Yeah, man, no, that's really important. And that's what the going back to that's what the Michael Bim immersion is all about. The retreat is all about learning about this stuff, you know. So then
Right.
you can empower yourself. And once you're
Yes.
empowered enough, you can then empower your family, your loved ones with this. And then once we do
Yes.
that, we can build a community. And that's where we move into Michael Bim community. That's going to be our non-profit arm of Michael Bim. And that's when we
Right.
build community in Barbados. So we need the elders as well as the youngsters who know about
Yeah.
the plants, the
Right.
healing plants that are already on the island that Granny taught you about and great Granny taught you about, and that we can
Right.
now start combining with the turkey tail, combining with the reishi, combining with the lion's mane, and start creating our own alchemical brews and elixirs for ourselves. Like as you said, taking the power back in our own hands.
Yeah. And you
You know,
imagine being able to then present this to the world on that level where you now can take back to UK a tincture that is made of all um uh plant medicine from here,
mm,
and they're looking forward to it up there. That
yeah,
will
man.
be awesome.
So that's why
Let's
it's
do
really important. Like I
it with
said,
rum.
yeah, man, yeah, man. I know there's enough rum there, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But we're gonna use it for the right cause this time, you know, not that
Exactly. Exactly.
so yeah, it's that's why I'm saying it's really important that we come together on this one because, as I said, we can create something really beautiful just for the individuals, you know, just sorting your health out, but like
Yeah.
community that is butterfly effect for the world. If we can, you know, pull our resources together. And I think yeah, these are the days and times that we're living in. People are looking for alternatives. And then you find out these alternatives are actually the prime. They're not the alternative. They are the way. They've been the way. And we're just coming back
Yes.
full circle. Just like I'm coming back to
Exactly.
Barbados, you know,
Exactly.
it's coming back to mushrooms. Everything is just coming back full circle. But this time around, what we need to do is take our own sovereignty, man. We can't just give up, like I said, because they've done this in Africa, man. They've done this in the Native American places. They've done this in Asia where they've gone, taken resources, and the West benefits from it. And the people where these things come from don't see the benefits from it, man. They still sick, financially sick, physically sick. They're just so like this time around, let's see what's going on in it. Let's see what happens. Because it's up to
And
us what happens.
hopefully it can move into the region. You got to go to Jamaica. Dominica is another good one. I
Yeah.
remember it's been a while, but I went to Dominica and they had people there cultivating mushrooms, and they showed me reishi that the color was unreal. It was,
Mm,
I don't know, blue, purple, blue. It
okay.
was a reishi mushroom, but it was definitely beyond the red realm. It
Yeah.
had bluish
Yeah.
tints to it. And it was like, wow. And
Mm,
their forested areas are so more it's different from the topography is different from here.
man, yeah, man, yeah,
So
man.
being able to take this now, once you've mapped out BIM, then we could get into some of the other islands would be awesome. So we can get a wide variety of different um all the different mycelium that are
Yeah,
out
man.
there.
That's you know,
Yeah.
that's the mission, man. That's the mission. That's the mission, sis. Yeah, man. That's why I'm looking forward to. I'm coming. You know, I'm there in a few days, man. So I'll be back on the island in a few days. We start the work behind the scenes, and yeah, man, we got some good traction. We got some publicity in the newspapers and the radio and stuff. So hopefully, you know, we get the same kind of support again, and you know, we can get the message out there further and get a stronger hold on the people, man. Just for them to, you know, at the minimum, just start getting educated so we can have mature conversations about it. It doesn't need to start off with Duppy parasol and Duppy umbrella, and we could start the conversation from a good starting place, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
For me, that was really
Yeah. And
important.
this conversation has been really good to go right through all the different spectrums of ideas and thoughts that people are going to have in their head. So this is a
Mm.
really good place for the future knowledge to be dropped when you get here. I think it starts on the 16th.
That's right. 16th to the 22nd. That's when we've got the Michael Bim retreat immersion. And then in November, stay tuned. I don't know if you can put the information, but they could just stay tuned to your platform, my platform, and wait for these November dates to be announced. We're going to be going up and down the island and be calling on people, just put on your boots, put on your overall, whatever it is, and come walk the fields with us, man. Come walk the
Yeah,
fields and
yeah,
learn while
sounds
we
good.
learn. Yeah,
I'll
man.
definitely be there once I'm here on the island. That'll be cool for sure. All right, so we're actually going to do this again after
Yeah,
um,
man.
your immersion, and we're going to be getting a report on how that went and how people received it and all that good stuff. So we're going to end it off today. Thank you so much for all your knowledge and wisdom. And we will be back in about maybe 2 weeks or so, and I'll see you when you get here in a couple of days.
Yeah, man, for sure, man. Bless up, sis. Really appreciate. Yeah, as I said, the invitation to come and share. Looking forward to sampling your food and your juices and all of that there. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love it. I said, just to pull it out there, family. The cis students come and combine, the traditional island food with the mushrooms, man. This is what we're calling code breaking. You're cracking the codes, man, making sure
Yeah.
people get access. And so I see you, sis, man. So I appreciate, yeah, us being able to do these collaborations, man, and many more.
Yes, for sure, for sure, for sure. I'm looking forward to it very much. So take
All right.
care. All
All right,
right.
you too.